After 6 weeks of building, documenting, and sharing progress, I'm excited to say that I clicked publish to distribute my first app on the App Store. I wanted to share how I came up with the idea, the metrics that I'm tracking, and how I prioritize features during the first 3 days of being live. This is a real, unfiltered look of getting an app from idea to beta testing to live on the App Store. I came up with this idea one day when I was trying to find my server access from my college days. While I was looking through my notes, I found so many things in there that I forgot about. I realized I use my notes app like a junk drawer for my thoughts, ideas, and reminders, but those notes rarely ever see the light of day. Some notes were actionable, like a podcast idea I had in 2019. Some notes evoked feelings of nostalgia, like a to-do list that I had in 2023. Some notes made me feel hungry, like a grocery list I had in 2017. Some notes brought me stress, like some random work code I wrote in 2025. You get the point. There's so much gold lurking in my Apple Notes, and like gold, it just keeps growing. I built a fun productivity app that brings in all my notes to take me on a trip down memory lane and rediscover everything I've ever written. Okay, so the first step is bringing the notes into the app. Apple does not have a public API for notes like they do for photos, so this was the first roadblock for this project. I ended up finding out the only Apple compliant way of doing this is by leveraging the Shortcuts app. Initially, I first had the user run the shortcut, then for the main swiping view, I wanted it to be Apple Notes yellow and resembling a quote out of a book. This is all fine, but what's the point of the app? I thought I wanted it to be a peaceful, meditative app. When a user swipes right, the note becomes a firefly that floats into space and flies around the app. And as you interact with it, the firefly gets wings and floats, and there'd be twinkling stars and firefly tracks and soothing music, and you'd be building a little ecosystem that grows. Yeah, that was dumb. So the question became, when a user has surfaced a random note, say from 2016, what would be useful if they swiped right? We need to help them easily access that note in the future, and make sure that they don't forget about it like they did 9 years ago. The first app design was too tacky, and the second one made no sense. I spent a lot of time on this website and just went through different apps' screenshots. I ended up making a list of all the things I liked in an app and came up with the final design that you see today. This is the splash view. It's used to fire up my database, analytics, and notification system. This is the import screen. This is the screen that you add the shortcut on. This is the loading animation while an import is processing. It has nice haptic feedback to simulate the liquid filling up. This is the main screen. Users can interact and swipe on their notes. This is the file explorer. Any note that you swipe right on gets saved into here automatically, categorized for you. Okay, so the full app is completely vibe coded, and there's some secrets and hacks I learned to properly vibe code. The key here is to leverage agents and spawn an agent for each task that you want to implement. I wrote 46 documents for this project, each outlining the problem, the goal, and a technical implementation guide for the AI to follow. This ensures it follows the architecture of my app, uses the same existing design elements, data models, and managers I already built. Choosing the tech stack was one of the most fun parts of building the app, because I got to go down rabbit holes with exploring the new tools out there. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, followed designers on Product Hunt, and went through at least 20 product landing pages when seeing what exists out there on the internet. I was mainly shopping for a nice analytics tool, a reporting tool, a Postgres database, and an app health monitoring tool. After all that, this is what I landed on. Supabase for the database and backend, PostHog for analytics and product dashboards, Crashlytics for monitoring the app health, Framer for building a quick landing page, FormSpark for managing the waitlist, UserJot for receiving feedback from users, Notion for visualizing the app timeline and progress, Shots.so for creating the app screenshots, and of course, Claude Code for building the damn app. Okay, now that I have a version 3.0, I wanted some people to start using the app. I used Framer to quickly whip up a landing page and start collecting emails for a beta group. I then made a post on Reddit that ended up getting about 250 people on the waitlist. This was great because I could have 16 rounds of testing if I gave 15 people access to the test flight each iteration. In the first round of 15 people, I got 11 people to actually install the app. I emailed all 11 of those people, 7 people responded. Of those 7, 5 of them were willing to go back and forth with me. It was in this batch that somebody mentioned something to me. They said, once I swipe right, it organized the note, but it's just gonna collect dust in there. Remember, my requirements were easily access the note in the future and make sure I don't forget about it again. Basically, this app doesn't even address the second part of my requirements. I decided that each note that you swipe on deserves its moment to shine, if you want it to. So I added notifications to each note in an arbitrary time frame. So maybe 1 month from now, I want to be reminded of this note again. This solves my second requirement. This went on for about 6 more iterations until I decided the feedback that I was getting was minimal enough to be included in a dot release. Until Apple hit me with a reality check. The app was rejected for 4 reasons. Honestly, they weren't too bad. It was mainly that they couldn't find some of the features that were listed. I then resubmitted and I got the approved notification and that the app was live. Okay, so now is where we learn the most about the app. Does it work? Is it useful? Do people use it as it was intended? What features do people care about? What features do people not know exist? What doesn't exist but people want? Where are people getting stuck? This is why we built the analytics, and boy am I glad we did. Because after the first 3 days, I had some data to make my own hypothesis on user behavior. First, users are scared of importing their notes. Notes contain sensitive information, passwords, personal thoughts, work stuff, whatever. The point is, you don't want others to see your notes. I confirmed that by checking the onboarding conversion rate from installing the app to importing notes. This was an abysmal 17%. It turns out that privacy was one concern, but also people thought that by swiping left on swipe note, it would delete the original note in your Apple Notes. My attempt to fix these fears was by adding onboarding screens, which ensures safety of the originals and the privacy of the notes themselves. After building these onboarding screens and putting out a new version, I did see that the ratio of downloaded users to imported notes increased to 22%, which is great, but 22% is still really low. I need to figure out why people are actually dropping off. The second issue I saw was that users that did import would swipe through all their notes in one sitting, essentially spam it and be done. The whole point of the app is to be mindful of your notes. You wrote them for a reason, so reflect on it and allow it to transport you back into that era. I saw that an average user would have about 500 notes imported. Free users tend to get around 20 to 40, and it's really easy to swipe through 40 notes in a minute and never use the app again. So now we have 2 requirements here. Make users respect their thoughts, and 2, increase the daily retention of the app. I fixed the first issue by limiting notes to 20 notes per day. When you see a daunting number like 500 notes, it's human instinct to just go through them as fast as possible. I fixed the second issue by implementing 2 features. We already have notifications if a user wants to be reminded of a specific note. I reused that logic to implement a daily digest notification, which tells the user that their 20 cards are ready for today. This way, users know to come back and look at their freshly available notes. To motivate them even more, I gamified it by implementing streaks. Streaks are a really effective way to get users to come back daily to see that number grow. By making these changes, I saw that the session duration increased as well, which aligns with my goal of having people spend time on each of their notes and give them the attention that it deserves. The final thing I observed was that users are clicking import, but they aren't swiping. By tracing the user journey, I can see that they're clicking the import button, but how come I don't see any swipe events? My hypothesis for this is because of shortcuts. Most users are new to shortcuts. Most have never even used it before. Because Notes does not have a public API, this is the only workaround that is Apple App Review compliant. People are adding the shortcut that comes with the app, but it seems like they just don't know that they have to physically run the shortcut themselves. I address this by adding an alert dialog that says, "Forgot to run shortcut," if they return to the app without running it. The first 3 days of launching an app are very important to observe. You'll learn a lot about your users. You'll learn a lot about how your users use your app. After addressing all these changes, I published an updated version to the App Store and decided it was time to now get as many eyes on it as possible. See, this was a pet project, mainly to solve a problem for myself. I didn't want to spend any money running ads, but at the same time, I wanted people to use the app. I spent like 6 weeks on it. These days, ads are really expensive. 5 years ago, it would have cost like $2 to get a download, but nowadays it costs upwards of $10 to get a download. And that's just out of my budget of $0. However, Apple did give $100 in free credit. So in the name of science, I ran a small ad campaign. And yeah, it went exactly how I expected it. As you can see, I spent $14 to get 1 install. This is just not viable for me. So I started by posting on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Product Hunt, but finally, I started posting on Reddit. Reddit is great because it doesn't matter what your online cloud is. Reddit was the biggest driver, with total views on Reddit passing 64,000 views and getting over 600 comments on all my posts. This translated to 86 pro users, and I was happy with the outcome and decided this is my strategy for the future. This video was the last step for this project. I can now put it to bed and move on to something else. Thank you for watching again.